Code
We
on
are
this
live.
computer. We are live. We are live. Yes.
Hello and welcome. And hello, Syl. Hello, Grain.
Hello, Beena. Hello, Beena. Hello, Beena.
Would be there. And hello, everyone, whoever is going to watch us live or going to watch the recording later. You can find it on YouTube and, of course, in the group Sassy also. Today is a special day. Not in other sense, but a special life because we are going to share a story. I'm just including myself for the privilege I have. That's it.
Yeah.
Other than that, Syl is going to share that story. But I feel that I'm part of it, not because of any other reason, but just that because I have this intent, because I want to be part of this. That
Yeah.
is something, not because of any like, okay, oh yes, I do. I haven't done anything into this. I don't have any contribution into this, but I'm including myself because I really want to be part of this. And that is something I think that, okay, every one of us is entitled to. When we have an intention,
Yes.
it's something good,
Yes.
something really, really bonus, and something very valuable.
Yes.
Good. I'm just doing this because this is how I feel connected.
You
And
become part by being audience, by being
exactly.
a listener. You become a participant through being audience.
Yes. And this is why I feel that. And I was just before this live, I was sharing with Syl that I realized that for so many times when I just assumed that okay, yes, I share something and I and ask for his perspective on something or about someone, and he shared with complete, of course, honesty and with his experience and his ability to thinking it through to the end, and also some other skills he has. Even after that, even after knowing all these things about him, still I say, but he might not be getting all the information because he don't know that all the information. So maybe the context is missing for him. So maybe his perspective might not work.
Hello,
Most of
Norma.
the
Hello, Norma. I'll interrupt you real quick. And sure. Hello, hello, hello. Oh, wonderful.
culture, it's been
Wonderful.
very, very, very long. I haven't chat with Shah. So yes, hello,
Yeah,
Shah.
yeah, yeah, fantastic. And Norma, Norma's here too. Brilliant, brilliant. Hello, hello, soul. Hello. I get hello, soul in English accent there from Norma. All right, carry on, Bina. Carry on. Sorry, carry on. I just wanted to just acknowledge them there real quick because it's so important and so wonderful and so lovely that they are here and so brilliant. So carry on, carry on,
It
carry
was even after knowing many things about him that okay he never do the things like for granted and just saying for the sake of saying and all these
on.
things
Never.
without having any information, but still I always give take a bit of like margin for that. Okay, yes, because he's not aware, so I don't take it for granted, but I also like okay, yes, but I want to think it in a different perspective also, which is good, of course, which is good.
Yeah, yeah.
But there was a moment of realization for me because something else happened, and exactly what he was saying. He said he shared that in a very subtle way, and but it was important for me, and I was
Mm.
paying attention. That perspective came out exactly as he shared. The situation was completely like that,
Wow.
and okay, I didn't share with him that okay, what actually, so he is not aware what I'm talking about, as you guys are also not aware.
Yeah.
That you want to go into specific, it can be with anything. Why I'm sharing this, I came today on Zoom and I shared that okay, Sil, I need to say that to you that most of the time your perspectives, your perception is right, on point. I always take it like okay, yes, I'm still going to think about it, which is good. But I need to appreciate. He didn't ask me that, Veena, that, okay, what about that? Oh, what happened, where I was right and all that. No, nothing. I shared. And he says, okay, yes, because Veena, I never do things like just randomly. No, I never try to do that. No, never.
Yeah. Or without substance and justification. That's really the point.
And also, he was very sure. It was not because of any hierarchy. It was not because of like, okay, oh, that, okay,
Yeah.
yes, I am. No, he was simply sharing the facts
Yeah.
about himself. because he has been thorough about himself. He's been practicing deliberateness in all of his life aspects. And that
Yeah.
confidence is coming pure confidence, pure trust, not because of any false beliefs about himself that, oh, I'm this and blah blah blah. No nonsense. Simple sharing the fact this is who I am. And
Yeah.
that self-awareness is a big deal for me. I was thinking
Yeah.
about this. We need to be what self-honesty is. It's not about being humble or like, yes, and because it is also, if you are diminishing yourself, if you are not stating the facts about yourself, still, even with the good intent, you are dishonest.
Right.
If you are
Have to
not
be scrupulous.
acknowledging your capabilities and your skills and your experience and your knowledge and wisdom, you're also dishonest. So when he shared that, without asking any question, Beena, okay, what you are actually referring to, what was the question, what was the thing? Nothing. He simply says, yes, because I never do those things. That's it. And that was the complete self-honesty and this
Yeah.
complete self-trust right there. Without getting into the nitty-gritty of like, okay, oh yes, okay, so then I would go into the praise mode. No, nothing. It was nothing. We just shared that thing and I shared
Yeah.
and he responded. It was,
Sorry.
no,
Carry
sir,
on.
I'm here.
Yeah. No, I just was when I switched to the zoom in where I can see the comments nicer than it does. I have to put the audio off. So
No problem.
yeah.
I was not feeling any need to give him the whole details about what I was saying, that why I was sharing, what was it all about. No, nothing. Okay, I just shared that. Okay, still, I noticed this thing and I was noticing it on a regular basis. And now, okay, this is the
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah.
He says, okay, this is because of that.
Yeah.
That is the environment where you don't feel any need of praise, where you don't
Yes.
need feel any need of justification. Nothing, no excuses, no justification,
Right.
no false humility, no false praise,
Oh.
nothing.
Oh.
Just sharing and self honesty. I was self
Exactly.
honest. Wow. And
Exactly.
honestly, so when I shared
Exactly.
that, whenever you share, I always think about like, okay, do he really understand what I'm saying? Okay, uh,
Yeah.
so is he sure about the context and
Yeah.
everything? Take his perception or perspective, and then try to think of things like that. But
Yeah.
that is something I feel. Now today was the day for me, another transformational day for me, where I experience the self honesty, the magic of
Well,
the self trust, and I
absolutely
truly hope.
critical. Absolutely critical. Wonderful. Wonderful. And from a point of self-honesty, I really like the story that I'm about to read, this chapter. And I think it's well written. I think it's very creative, and I'm really I struggle with saying I'm proud of things. I'm appreciative of my own output. Let's put it that way. Yeah. So it's very
Yes.
powerful, and it's just
Yes, sir. Yes,
self-honesty.
sir.
It's not
I
ego or
share
anything like
that.
that. I think objectively it has merit, which is why I was keen, for to share this and make a special thing out of it. So I hope more come, but I'm about to get going. I'm about to get going. Right. Any closing comments there? Are you looking at the comments on
Yes,
Facebook
just
as
want to
well?
say, sure, yes, absolutely, sure. This is what I was trying to share, that
Yeah,
self-honesty is critical. And as you say that on any recovery journey or self-discovery path, it is
exactly.
critical in every single moment in our
Exactly.
life.
Exactly.
With
Yeah.
self-honesty, this is the start and this is the end. This is
Yeah.
the alpha and
Yeah.
omega, everything.
Yeah.
Self-honesty is
Yeah.
alpha and omega for everything. Because without self-honesty, we cannot be sure about whatever is coming to us is real or not. It's a
Yeah.
big topic, okay? And because
Yeah.
I can assume about myself, I understand,
I mean,
which might not be.
yeah. All right. I'm ready. It takes a lot
Yes,
of courage to be
yes,
self-honest. Yes, sure. Yes,
absolutely,
sure. Yes, sure.
absolutely.
And this is if we it's not so much necessarily apparent in this chapter, but if we look at the
Yes.
book as a whole, we see this automatic self-honesty and honesty and openness in the new nobility. It's part of the culture. And we are only reluctant to be self-honest because we're in a culture that doesn't value it, that frowns on it. Why? Because our honesty exposes the hypocrisy. And our self-honesty, likewise, by example, even if I'm not saying you are all full of it, but if I'm getting my act together, I'm going to, by contrast, show up those who don't and who are manipulating and abusive and full of nonsense. And that's why. Yeah. I know, Norma, I know you'd rather see me than the big range of writing, but it can't be helped because otherwise I have to read this and you don't get to read along with me. So I know you have that bias, Norma. I know, but it can't be helped because in this type of reading, not everybody has clear audio, and it does really help when you can read along, right, Beena? You prefer to read along, right? Rather than just watching me read it. Yes? No? Bina? Where'd you go? You muted.
Yes, I muted myself. Sorry.
All right. So I'm just saying you prefer to read along, right? It's much easier for you, yeah? And also,
Yes.
Norma, like in the case of when you read along, if you're not sure of a word or the pronunciation of a word, you're seeing it and hearing it. So it's very helpful to do that. Yeah. So I appreciate that, Norma, that you want to see this, but I'm still there. I'm just in the little picture, right? You see, I'm still in the corner there. Now, Norma, I don't know if you have sound on your big computer, but see on the phone, you don't quite see the little small me up on the side there as you would on the computer. So, maybe that would be the thing to get speakers onto your bigger computer and watch it on the bigger computer. And then you'll see me and see the screen share. All right. On this point, let's get started. Yeah, I mean, that the self-honesty point is a big point, but I don't want to get too distracted and too long. Already we had 15 minutes pretty much to get started here. I do want to get into reading the story. That's our focus here, right? All right. Uh, if again on this one, for those who haven't been following along in the whole story, you don't need any of the preceding chapters. I mean, yes, they help to introduce the characters, but it really doesn't matter here, right? um, it's not that critical. All right, chapter 15, Songs and Hearts. I love the mystery and possibilities of being. I refuse to lock myself into any one, so as not to deprive myself the fun of exploring them all. Wow. From The Wandering Noble. I think I have to read that again. I love the mystery and possibilities of being. I refuse to lock myself into any one so as not to deprive myself the fun of exploring them all. Wow, very cool. From The Wandering Noble. Can you relish the dream? Biella said. They had left the sky garden, making their way across the crown of the giant tree, heading towards the mountain. Said Ursula, smiling, prompting Biella for more. Just a thought that crossed my mind. Biella smiled back but did not elaborate. Her smile broadened even more as she spotted Illuminia coming. Oh, excellent! Illuminia, smiling with joy, hugged Biella, then hugged Ursula, and without pause or reflection of any kind, hugged Hela. Biella made introductions, adding a measure of explanation. Illumineer, this is Hela. She offered us friendship, which Ursula and I both wholeheartedly accepted and returned. Illumineer took a thoughtful, deep look at Hela. Without hesitation, she said, well, then I too am your friend. Anyone Biela accepts and befriends on that level is also a friend of mine. She hugged Hela again. Hela took a moment, overwhelmed. The genuine, unrestrained goodness of the three of them amazed her. She knew the offers were not casually made, not made without consideration or awareness of the implications or consequences. That much was obvious. It was their capacity to shift and embrace the moment that fascinated and impressed her. She knew Biella and Ursula had plans. They had been willing to set aside their commitments, all for her. That was profound and telling. They were not acting blindly, knowing exactly what they were doing, but none of the hand-wringing and irrelevant agonizing or deliberating. Hyla had always observed in others when decisions of import were made. This readiness to live, to immerse in the now, to not waste a precious second, this grabbed Hyla to her very core. Hyla shakily extended her hand towards Illuminia in the friendship gesture, overcome with emotion. Illuminia placed her hand against Hyla's, going with a gesture. Hyla could not speak. She simply held her hand against Illuminia's as tears streamed down her face. Most people did not make the gesture more than once or twice a year at the most, sometimes only 3 in a decade. And here she had made it 3 times in the space of a few hours. And it had been profoundly returned all 3 times. A gift beyond imagining. Friendships on Hyla's world were not only treasured, they were venerated. Hyla's tears touched the others, drawing tears from them in turn. They all hugged Hyla deeply, sensing more to the release. Through her empathy, Illuminia started laughing. A joyful, merry delight of mirth. We are friends, new friends, and here we are sobbing like babies. She grabbed their hands and the trees are about to start a great song. Come, come, big babies, Illuminia cajoled playfully. They laughed with her, wiping their faces as she dragged them towards a massive branch, connecting the great tree they were on to another. I felt it on the way up. I came to tell you. I arranged the free chat for tomorrow. Just seemed appropriate somehow. She smiled. Illuminia's intuition was remarkable, never failing to amaze Biella. She grinned at Hyla. It is the way of our lives, she said softly, gently. It always seems improbable, unlikely, impossible to us as well. It is a constant magic that flows, that we connect to by being appropriate in the greatest context. She left it there. More magic was evidently about to unfold. Come, come! Here! Illuminia urged eagerly. This is the best spot. It is beginning, but will take a while to build. Enough to explain. She grinned, aware of the mystery she was presenting, a mischief in her eye. This is a special spot. Nobelia is a special place. New nobles do nothing casually. They love art, all kinds of art. They love to take things to the maximum, to not leave anything out or undone when they can. Illuminia said enthusiastically. She swept her arms around, encompassing more, indicating the giant trees and the forest they carried on their branches. And the forest they carried on their branches. Listen, she entreated. They did as bade. At first, for Ursula and Hyla, they only heard the sounds of the forest, the wind through the giant trees. You have to tune your ears to your soul, Illuminia explained. Biella smiled with anticipation. She loved to watch this first time experienced by others. Hyla and Ursula's faces lit up with delight and astonishment at the same time. Why, but they exclaimed simultaneously. Illuminia was thrilled. She too loved the spot. She joined in the joyous laughter. There are some very sophisticated acoustics, sound properties, and a whole range of complicated technical factors involved. Many new nobles were involved in this massive project. Many still monitor it. What you hear are thousands of wind chimes, all sizes, from many different materials. The overwhelming majority are from wood. The non-wood chimes are about in the same ratio as one would find those elements in a tree. The wooden ones are from woods all over the ag. There are some extremely exotic chimes out there, but the magic is in how they work. Yes, they are wind chimes, but they aren't rung with a free swinging pendulum moving in the wind. The ringer is an electromagnet, its movement governed by the tree's movement, the part of the tree it is connected to, not the wind directly. The smaller the chime, generally the further they are from the trunks and the huge branches. Those further out chimes will respond to the multiple movements. So, if the trunk is swaying, it may set up a steady, slow beat or rhythm. The movement of the huge branches will be overlaid, then the smaller branches, and so on, slightly faster and higher. as each layer of movement is differently represented and overlaid. I want to pause just for a little second here and say hello to Ramsey for being here. Yes, Ramsey, we hope we are doing well. And it is marvelous that you're here. I love that you're here. This is brilliant. So fantastic, fantastic. And Beena is back. So I'm just going to reread this part there from when Beena dropped off. Are you here, Beena? Can you hear me?
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
But the magic is in how they work. Yes, they are wind chimes. And I'm repeating also because it's very critical to understand this, to really appreciate the story to come. But the magic is in how they work. Yes, they are wind chimes, but they aren't rung with a free swinging pendulum moving in the wind. The ringer is an electromagnet, its movement governed by the tree's movement, the part of the tree it is connected to, not the wind directly. The smaller the chime, generally the further they are from the trunks and the huge branches. Those further out chimes will respond to the multiple movements. So if a trunk is swaying, it may set up a steady, slow beat or rhythm. The movement of the huge branches will be overlaid, then the smaller branches, and so on, slightly faster and higher, as each layer of movement is differently represented and overlaid. Illuminia was enjoying herself. There was so much to this, so much magic and wonder, so much joy and marvel. Many have described what you are hearing when you listen and tune in as a multitude of flying fairies laughing. Many have described this as a multitude of flying fairies laughing. You get to get you to hear it at all without it being a cacophony is part of the incredible design. First, they set the sound in such a way it blends with the forest and the trees. One has to deliberately shift attention to hear it. When one does, as you have just heard, the effect is stupendous. It is done this way for the residents. They can choose to tune in or not. However, when a great wind comes, all bets are off. Then the chimes are released, as the locals call it. Then there's the attunement with all the other chimes, uh, as all are synced to each other. There we go. Then there's the attunement with all the other chimes, as all are synced to each other, within the maximum typical range of the sound of the chime. Every now and then one hears a chime like a solo. That would be when the sound is caught by the wind, and our ear happens to be in its path. Illuminia chuckled at the thought. The sync is set so the chimes feed off of each other. The actual sound itself, by way of the vibrations, affects the other chimes. There's a kind of a ripple effect, like waves in a pond. They will run across the forest, be added to from new wind gusts, amplified when the waves overlap, or be muted when the waves coincide to cancel each other out. That's why the sound and the feel of it all is so much more than just sound. It's such an incredible surrounding, all encompassing and spiritual experience. Yeah? That's why the sound and the feel of it all is much more than just sound and is such an incredible surrounding, all encompassing and spiritual experience. You hear sounds moving along, say behind you. They pass and move away in front of you. But simultaneously, there are sounds coming up from below. Right? This is so cool. From the sides, moving towards you and away from you, swirling, diving, careening, cascading, an incredible multi movement of sound. You hear them, feel them, respond to the other sounds. They form choruses, sometimes solos, mass choirs. Sometimes it seems that the entire forest is not only resonating with sound, but moving and dancing. Not just the sounds themselves, the beautiful, gorgeous, spontaneous melodies, but the movements of those sounds. They go up, down, across, around, in any pattern of movement one can imagine. Illuminia grasped for breath, her excitement for the topic grabbing hold of her completely. That still isn't the most incredible part, Illuminia enthused. They are set up in such a way that discordance is impossible. Discordance of not only the sounds but also the movements. Only discordance is avoided. The rest is pure magic. Well, my definition of magic. What's that you always say about magic, Biella? If you don't believe in magic, then for heaven's sake, get your head read and broaden your definition. Biella said straight faced. No, no, Olivia started to say, then caught on. Very funny, she said in the cutest way possible, although she was not trying to be cute. Biella loved to tease Illumina, a treat every time. Yes, yes, that, except without the getting your head read part. She shot Biella a glare that had them all laughing. But really, Illumina said, getting back to a topic. One of the new nobles involved in the technical aspects once explained it to me. He said the complexity of the variables started to approach what happens in our brains. And there's more. Illumina trailed off as if she had run out of energy, a muted twinkle in her eye. Ursula and Ayla were now immersed in the sounds of the forest-wide symphony. Illumina moved slightly, indicating with her eyes the exact spot she wanted Biella on. They moved as if they were just making themselves comfortable. Ursula and Haile adjusted accordingly, maintaining conversational distance. Illumina nodded ever so slightly to herself, satisfied. She cocked her head, turning her face into the wind. It had picked up. Illumina raised both her arms theatrically, like an impish conductor. She put tension into her arms, as if she was restraining some incredible force. Her arms quivered, her face rapt with concentration. Biella stared, fascinated. She had been here many times with Illumina, but this was new to her. Ursula and Haile noticed Biella's surprise and interest. Their fascination heightened. Illumina strained against the invisible force, her head cocking to one side, then to the other. It seemed the force was somehow connected to something she was listening to, or for. It's coming, she whispered fiercely. Her eyes closed in rapt attention. Her legs trembled and shook. It's coming, she said louder, her entire body fibrillating under the strain. It's coming, she shouted so loudly, some of the nearby chains responded. She shook so fiercely, it seemed she would get whipped away by the unseen force any second. Biella was spellbound, utterly enchanted. It's here! Illumina held with such power, Biella almost took a step back. Illumina raised her arms, stretching mightily as high as she could above her. Then she crashed her arms down with all her might. At that exact moment, the mightiest of mighty deep sonorous booms resounded across the forest from all sides. The sound so deep and powerful, it literally rocked them where they stood. Illumina was spent, exhausted, but again she cocked her head. Once more! This time she swirled, raised her arms high, straining with every fiber of her being, and again whipped her arms down. And again the incredible sounds of the great chimes rung out, shaking their bodies. She shivered with joy as the sounds found her being. She vibrated gloriously to their sounds. Let go, Illumina urged them, her eyes still closed. She laid her head back, arms wide, and let go. It could clearly be seen in her body. All tension flowed out. A marvel she could stand it all. So entranced were the friends, they followed suit without thinking. Feel, don't listen, Illumina urged. They did so. This part Biella had experienced before. She gave herself over to the forest, to the feel of it, the rhythm of it, the vibration of it. She heard the chimes, all of them, from the tiniest, faintest, delicate tinklings to the large, deep, deep, powerful, bone vibrating thunder of the bass chimes. These were delicate now compared to earlier, as if they were simply filling in the pauses between the singing of the giant chimes. They sounded again, multiple deep, long, melodic, sonorous notes. The start had been near them. The sounds, no, song. It was more a short phrase of song than sounds. The song was picked up by another of the giant trees to their left. They could feel the branch sway in that direction as a mighty gust swirled, the great wind bouncing off the mountains, creating complex eddies. adding to the symphony of expression. The wind was not as much fast as it was powerful, like it had substance. Now the giant chimes to their right responded in song, picking up the forest song, passing it along, adding to it. The song moved on deeper into the great trees. They heard the other great trees adding to it. The song grew with each great tree it encountered, spreading in compounding waves through the forest. Ripples splitting off from the main song, rippling back towards them. These in turn picked up by the smaller chimes, delightfully adding their own accompaniment to the great song. Back and forth went the great song, the great trees seeming to add and respond with a will, adding to the song on some occasions when it came by, and leaving it on others. The great wind flowed through the forest, its effect only on the physical movement of the trees now, and its own sound through them. The chimes no longer responded directly to the wind, or so it seemed, to the movement of the trees. Their movements were now aligned, flowing with the great song. The song now had a life, as it had its own life, its own force and power, fed by the great trees, who breathed into the song. They sighed into the song. Yeah, so they drank the song. They responded, echoed, added, embellished, all through the deep sounds of the great chimes, the smaller chimes enhancing in accompaniment, the magnificent, profoundly awe-filled voices of the giant trees. The song moved quicker across the great forest, the giant forest. It swelled, building, moving in giant waves of sound, physically moving the leaves and small branches it passed. The great waves were moving first away from them, then closer. Gradually, the friends had become the epicenter. The song intensified, so loud and huge now. Everything else was silent by comparison, magnificently beautiful, as if all the emotions of the giant trees were finally released after having been pent up for ages. But it was pent up love, for it was an enormous song of love. The waves of sound moved faster, each time coming closer and closer to their spot of honor. They felt a deep rumbling from below. It moved up along the giant trees in unison to the giant waves of sound, now closing in on them, with each increasing crescendo to the great song. Then great rumbling and the great song hit them. Then great rumbling and the great song hit them. Time collapsed. They vibrated in place. They literally had no control. The great song enveloped them. They were in its heart, on the exact spot of a massive standing wave of sound, fed by the songs from all the great trees. All had joined in. The sounds shivered the very air around them, fed melodiously by the great trees, as each added their particular love to the great song. They were singing to the earth, a love so deep, so loving. The love could be felt all the way down to the very core of the earth, deep into the massive, deep roots of the giant trees. The great song completely enveloped the four friends. No thinking now, only feeling. Even if they wanted, any thought near impossible, as the electromagnetic field created on their spot acted as a thought dampening field. The effect on the four women beyond description. They were pure feeling now, feeling the love of the great trees, their love of the earth, their love for the wind, for the birds, the animals, the insects, the rain, the people who lived in the trees, everything they could feel, including love for the four of them. They felt the individual parts, though it was one whole. The song was so beautiful, so exquisite, it moved them so much. All they could do to bear the immense beauty and love of it was yell. They yelled at the tops of their voices with an abandon like never before. No thought involved. Their bodies responding to that deep love that kept coming and coming through the great song. Time was nowhere. They experienced infinity, for they were pure feeling within the great song. They lived through cycles of growth, emerging as young saplings, some falling away to join those that remained from below, adding themselves back in again. Each time, as more fell away, the remaining became stronger, to merge finally into the great trees. They felt the guidance of the sentience, the loving care of the great balance, the deep joy at their addition to their strength, by the way the humans guided their growing. The love intensified. It did not seem possible, but it did. The sentience did what was not known, what was incomprehensible. The great trees sang of the watching, of the waiting. Then overwhelming joy flooded from the trees, the joy of the joyous great day. The great day, the great wind came again. They could feel the immense love of the great trees for the great wind. But on that great day there was a difference. Everything had changed on that momentous day. On that day the great trees could sing. They had been given great voice. They had had small voice among their roots. That's how they guided the young ones, nourished each other, directed each other to the water and food they needed. That was how they shared. But on the great day, their little voices became great voices, voices they could feel, great voices that responded to the voices of others. At first they had been clumsy in their singing. They did not yet understand. But over the many, many years they had learned. With each great wind they added to the song of them. Now, now it was a song of pure love and beauty. They sang and they sang and they sang. They would sing and sing and sing as long as the great wind moved them to sing. Eventually, or so it seemed, the great wind eased. The four friends found themselves in relative silence. After that, anything would seem quiet. In actuality, it had been minutes only, but the timelessness of the experience would forever say otherwise. It took them much longer to compose themselves than the experience. They were breathing in long, deep breaths, as if in a deep sleep, a phenomenal feeling, like what breathing was in its essence. No tension in their bodies other than what was critically needed, so minuscule as to be essentially unnoticeable. The effect magical. They felt impossible. Illumina first to speak, their minds coming back online. They felt connected to the forest, to the giant trees, a bond they would have forever. Their minds' innate need for understanding now kicked in. Illumina held up her hand. No. Their mind's innate need for understanding now kicked in. Illumina held up her hand tenderly. I will explain, she said gently, setting them at ease. Biella had been through this experience before, but not like this. She had some questions of her own. Look, Illumina said, pointing to the top of the joined trunk of the nearest great tree. This is the only time one can see them clearly. The vibrations have knocked away most of what usually covers them. The great chimes. There, hanging from underneath the great crown, were what at first appeared to be a group of large tree trunks, but then the arrangement could be seen. These would ordinarily have been very large trees, and had been so on worlds where they had come from. The great chimes were made from hollowed out trunks of these large special trees. Each giant tree has quite a few of these, Illumina explained. Part of what we experience, the little voice, it's a natural thing. In most forests, there's rudimentary communication between the trees. What we felt all happens naturally. The new nobles simply connected the great chimes to that system. They set it up so that when the great wind comes, the movements of the roots sound the chimes, for that is the only time the great trees truly move sufficiently to affect their roots. They translated this all into the great chimes. It is all incredibly complex, but nothing truly magical about it, except the will to actually do it. Illumina smiled in wonder. She loved the new noble so. The great winds are a particularly dense wind, as you probably felt. They don't come around often, a few times a year at most, even skipping some years. It is why I postponed the free chat. No one can say for sure when the great winds will come. This one had come suddenly, fortuitously so for us, as we were already in position to experience the epitome. I have been monitoring and studying them for years. I gave up on the scientific part of it. It was too inaccurate. I started to trust my intuition. I became more and more attuned. Then I learned that dance. That's a capital D dance. Illumina laughed with joyful abandon, giving Biella a teasing fun look. Well, I didn't have to do it quite like that. I was exaggerating tremendously. A little performance for theatrical effect, and mainly to tease Biella. She chuckled delightfully. I had her quite puzzled. It isn't easy to do, you know, she said conspiratorially to Ursula and Hyla. Biella laughed delightedly. Yes, I was mesmerized and completely confused. It was so exquisite. You had me totally fooled. No, entranced by your wonderful magic. She laughed happily, fully appreciating Illumina. You mean was no invisible force? Ursula asked incredibly. Nope. Olivia grinned mischievously. I was hamming it up for all I was worth. She giggled deliciously. But it is a fantastic workout, an amazing dance in itself. Next time you try it, and you'll see there's a magical moreness to it, as there always is to that which comes via attunement. Illumina was enjoying herself tremendously. It was seldom she had been able to tease Biella so extensively, and when combined with a magnificent experience. And there's more. Excuse me. Of course, Biella and Ursula said simultaneously in what was their refrain. Nora and Aki had started this, and it had gone on. There is always more. They chorused together with big grins. Illumina had the interest. I do have to concentrate and tune in fully to my intuition, to an inner feeling, an inner rumbling, a minuscule echo of what we felt, a kind of tiny, tiny faint vibration from the earth. The dance helps for that. I have been able to pinpoint where the epicenter will be before. It's never in the same place. Otherwise, we would have a crowd here. There were indeed small groups all across the great branches. What we experienced will be felt all over the great forest with various degrees of intensity. I have been able to figure out the epicenter, or I should say, it is a knowing rather. When I get a hint of the great wind approaching, and I am certain it is definitely coming here, then I just know where the epicenter is going to be. That is, if I'm fully in attunement with all involved. No easy feat to accomplish, I have to tell you. The timing is a different matter. The dance is so I have some leeway with the timing. And besides, you have to admit, it was most exciting when I seemingly made that huge, huge sound happen with my very arms. Yes, Leonia giggled merrily. Yes, it was fantastic, Hyla said. Ursula nodded in agreement. I thought you were some high priestess of the trees or something, Hyla added. It was very impressive, thank you. It was an exquisite experience, no less diminished now. And, prompted Ursula, feeling there was something more. Illumina said with fun. Yes, I had another goal in mind. I don't know so much about the two of you. Well, Ursula, you I but I suspect, maybe. But Biella, I know for sure, can be a bit much in her head. I wanted to move her. And well, you two also. I wanted to get her completely out of herself for a change. She grinned at Biella. It worked great. I had her so confused. She didn't know what to think, which effectively crashed her mind's operating system. A great gift when it can be accomplished, enough to allow the magic of the song to take over. Wasn't it, Biella? Illumina asked with ever the tiniest trace of potential doubt, that ever present humility of the new nobles expressing itself. They never took anything for granted, no matter how sure they may seem. Yes, indeed. It helped tremendously. I experienced the great song the way you related to me that you did. Thank you, Angel. Biella hugged the Lumineer in an embrace of love. Their friendship something special indeed. What a fantastic business, Biella said. You are magnificent. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Hela and Ursula hugged the Lumineer as well, thanking her. No trace of hesitancy or doubt of any kind. Sorry, no trace of any hesitancy or doubt of appropriateness remained. That was all gone. They were friends now like few would ever be. It was as if Hela's friendship gesture had taken on a life of its own, had become magnified and incorporated into them by their shared experience of the great song. For not only had they felt the trees' feeling of them, but also through the great trees they had felt each other, an intimacy like no other. Did I leave anything out? Illumineer asked. They shook their heads. Good, for we are in for a small treat. A little wind is coming, much like an aftershock. The little wind will set off the great chimes, but only as chimes now. The little wind is not strong enough to move the great trees all the way to their roots. But the music. Biella, Ursula, Hyla, and Illumineer were entranced once more by the deep sonorous booming of the chimes. The way they overlapped, resonated with each other, flowing and responding to each other. The music of it superb, the smaller chimes sounding their delightful accompaniment. All across Tree City the joyous and melodious sounds could be heard, refreshing and renewing, a rain of glorious sound. Suddenly there was a rapid gonging, like one of the trees had become overexcited. A fun sound, full of naughtiness, if such a thing could be imagined from a great tree. The woman stood baffled, intrigued by this mystery, when a figure scampering up from the great trunk caught their eye. It was Dream Deer, laughing joyfully with abandon. She seemed to be in a big hurry. How she managed to climb that fast was a marvel, like a human monkey. Her joy energized her, and, it seemed, the great chimes. She scooted over to where they were, squeezing right into the middle of them. Then she completely relaxed and looked out into the trees, matching their still lingering mood of profound wonder. She was using them as camouflage, blending in with them. It had been her, it had been she that had rung one of the great chimes by hand, manipulating the electromagnetic somehow. It was all the girls could do to maintain their expressions. If they had broken out into laughter, they would given away something was up. They played along with Dream, delighting in her innocent mischief and joy. Can't keep straight face, Dream Dear said. This is all wonderful and fun. Yay! Dream said it with a pronounced E sound, which added to the fun of it. So awesome, Biella said, enjoying Dream's toy. Yes, happy. And with that, she took off in a delighted run, heedless of the heights or the wind. Of course, nothing will happen to Dream Dear if they knew she was here. There is no they, no one really to chase her. It's not that kind of world or society. But that doesn't matter to wonderful Dream Dear. She plays anyway, 'cause it's just pure joyful mischief. It's the expression of her pure and innocent heart, Biella said with a fond smile, watching Dream weave her way through branches on the edge of the ground. It's a profoundly joyful privilege, the responsibility and care of enjoying, delighting, and absorbing the wonder that is the innocent, Biella said with reverence. It is a deep, deep wish of mine that the innocent know how much difference they make, how important they are to the universe, the children of the universe who hold it all together. On most worlds, no one really knows that. On some worlds, they struggled, not so much now, as it is one of the consequences of the new nobility. Many found a home in the new nobility, or in some way that is connected to them, as the new nobility finds subtle, unnoticed ways to care for the innocents. The new nobility redefined their purpose and function in society. They showed, illustrated, and demonstrated many new and different ways to be. How those ways, which were completely new to most societies, were highly beneficial to them, even though they were most unconventional and had not been considered beneficial. They would not have realized this without the examples the new nobility set. They provided an awareness of the enormous value the innocence had for societies. Biella stepped to the edge of the huge branch. You see how important she is, Biella said fervently to the trees, to the world. She shows other ways of being, a reminder of the magic of the innocent. Biella cast her words into the wind, into the sounds of the great chimes. She let them be carried across the world, across the universe. Biella had a deep reverence in her heart for the innocent. They touched her so completely, so fully. The innocent motivated her, inspired her. She had long ago resolved to maintain her own innocence, no matter what. She would not let go of it, no matter how mightily she strove for sophistication. No matter she had acquired a large measure of that sophistication, she would maintain her innocence. And she had. Her friends such as Dream Deer and Illuminier, who had a powerful innocent side, helped her enormously with that exquisite balance she maintained. You flow through me, Dream Deer. Your dream merges with my dream. Biella called out with deep loving into the wind. Illuminier moved alongside, adding to Biella's gesture. You flow through me, Dream Deer. Your dream merges with my dream. She too called out into the wind of the world. Ursula and Hala were stirred to their core by this gesture. They had never experienced anything like it at all. This throwing out of a profoundly earnest intent into the waves and winds of the world. It was a gesture which rearranged them inside. Ursula took a small step closer to the edge. She tried to think of what would be appropriate to say, her mind flowing, almost tumbling along with the wind and the sounds of the great chimes. She started to say something she thought would be relevant, but the wind snatched it from her before she could utter a sound. I'm going to reread this part for Beena. Ursula took a small step closer to the edge. She tried to think of what would be appropriate to say, her mind flowing, almost tumbling along with the wind and the sounds of the great chimes. She started to say something she thought would be relevant, but the wind snatched it away from her before she could utter a sound. Then it all just fell from her. From somewhere unknown to her, she said, to all the innocents I may meet, to all the innocents I will meet, to all the innocents I have met, and did not recognize or acknowledge for their profound example of being, I offer my sincerest apologies. I offer my heartfelt resolve to make up for my ignorance. I too shall cherish you. With that, Ursula stepped back into the group, enfolding herself into their love and support, grateful for the comfort. Hala stepped to the edge now. She stepped right to the very edge, leaning out over it into the wind, spreading her arms wide, a gesture of complete trust that the wind would sustain her precarious balance. Love! She shouted at the wind. Ayla shouted with such intensity, the great chimes responded. A huge, deep, simultaneous boom came up from behind her and pressed her even deeper into the oncoming wind. The wind rushed fiercely to balance her, her gesture of innocent trust magnificent. I will love the innocent with all my heart. The innocent will be, the innocent will all be friends of my heart, she said with an almost desperate sincerity. A great gust of power came and blew Hala from the edge into the loving arms of her friends. They caught her and hugged her tightly, tightly to their hearts. Her grand gesture of abandon have moved them to a place of reverence, a place of grace, a place where the inordinate became manifest. The end. Oh, sorry. Story touches me deeply. Ah, oh, that's better. Ah.
What happened?
Oh, I just had to drink some water. That story makes me very emotional. I think my nose is just all blocked up. There's so much in that story. It really touches me deeply. I'm not the ideal one to read it actually, because I get too emotional. I'm fine, Nova. I'm just emotional. Just loving it. Just the pure moreness of it. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I'm good. I'm good. I'm good. Oh, you're saying hi to Ramsey. Ah, I'm glad you're here, Ramsey.
Hello,
Any
Ramsey.
comments? Any comments? Any comments? Bina, Norma, Ramsey, Sher, anyone else? Any comments? I'm keen to hear if you enjoyed the story or not. Enjoyed it as
Yes.
much as I do. Yeah.
Not exactly like the way you are emotional. Yes, I
Yeah.
am. Because it is of course deeply touches your heart, and of course
Yeah.
it's a something special to you. But
Thank you,
in
Ramsey.
as a personal thing, it's a very special story
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
not only that we have now we are able to imagine these new things and like how these things could happen, but also the interaction between all these new nobles and aspirants and everything. This is like what where their priorities are, where they get joy,
Exactly.
where their attention and focus. This is so amazing for me.
Yes.
Like okay, it's almost like okay, for many people it would be unbelievable that okay, how these people can be like this, but this is
Yeah.
true.
Yeah.
And I can say that with personal experience that this is true.
Yes.
I
Yes. Yes. Yes,
can say
huge,
that.
huge, huge, huge. Very big deal. And that's what makes me emotional. The deep, deep goodness and purity and marvelousness and nobility of it. And I experience this in my friends. You, Sher, Norma, Ramsey, all of you. All of you have this and express it to various degrees. Our culture doesn't necessarily allow for that expression, but in our microculture, yeah, it does, right? And we share it. And I see it there, even though I might not be fully comfortable with expressing it, because just not having enough practice. But the more and more we practice it, the more and more we see it. But I see it. I see past the surface inhibitions. I surpass past the reluctance and the caution and the care and the shyness. I see past that and I see that deep, deep caring and moreness and goodness. And it is profound, profound, and it's overwhelming for me. It's so wonderful, so wonderful. Right? So this is why the story is emotional, because it's showing and revealing that moreness of being. Yes, Vida? That's what we saw here, right? The moreness of being. Yeah. Not just from the friends, but from the trees too, right? It's a moreness of being from the giant trees. They represent us, right? And all about love, right? And the earth, of course, is part of it all. And this is the substance of the universe. It's what it's all about. Our typical culture and all the stuff that we get involved in is such a removal and so far away from that, so disconnected. It's sad. It's sad, right? No, very powerful, very, very powerful stuff. Did you enjoy the creativity of it, right? This idea of
Yes,
this
yes,
this giant trees, this forest, being able to
exactly.
speak through the chimes, the great chimes. And that's real. That's real stuff, right? This the voice, the little voice. This communication, you can go look it up. You can go, not you, but I think you're aware of this, but anybody doubting this, go and research it, and you'll see there's now definitive evidence that the trees communicate to each other in the forest via their roots. Yes, definitive evidence. This is not a speculation. Definitive evidence that there is a forest communication, that they intercommunicate with each other, right? And there is a forest sensibility, that the trees aren't just communicating for their own benefit. No, they are doing things for the benefit of the forest. And so that's why you'll see in forests where this is, that the trees grow in an appropriate spacing, right? You think, well, how did this come about? Well, because they are guiding the growth of the new trees as appropriate, right? So that the whole forest gets the
Yes.
maximum benefit. It's a fantastic thing. It's a truly fantastic thing. So the new nobility came along, and through their love of art and moreness and creativity and taking things to the end, right? And no holding back, going to the maximum. They love doing this. They said, "Hey, let's take this voice and give it voice." Now with the great chimes, there's the vibrational aspect of it as well, right? So as the trees learn this, they learn to communicate not only with the sound but also the vibrations, and it just got more sophisticated over the many years because this project has been it's been around for a long time, so the trees have had opportunity to practice and sing and get to the great song, but giving them voice. That's why the trees are so fantastically appreciative because it's not ever something they could do themselves, right? So this is like, just the greatest, grandest, most incredible gift that they could possibly do, right? And of course, the way they guided the growing also helped, in ways which the trees can't do themselves. They have limits to how they can grow themselves. So very, very profound, very magical. I just love the creativity of this. I thought it was a great concept, a great idea, a great, wonderfulness that could be applied. Okay, they aren't the giant trees, but could be applied to an actual forest. Could be done. Yeah. I mean, in most forests, though, the difference with Tree City, right? This forest of giant trees, is that they are connected to each other, not just via the roots, but via branches as well. Those great branches that they walk along, right? Which are like the roads and the bridges between the trees. Those are physically growing from one tree and connected to the other tree, right? So when one moves, the other also moves, right? So it gives stability to Tree City, and then they have the lateral branches that are going kind of at an angle down or almost horizontally into the mountain because they're all along the edge of the mountain, which gives them even more stability, allowing for this massive height, right? So they anchored to each other and anchored to the trees, right? To the thing. Because when you're that tall, the leverage becomes incredibly profound, right? But now when you anchor to the tree, you don't need to have that much strength. You're not in danger of crashing over in a great wind, right? Because of the leverage, right? And this massive top heaviness of Tree City and these branches, that anchoring into the mountain is a huge deal and makes a massive difference, right? So all of it all works together into this profoundness, this really magical, awesome creation, this work of profound art, really, that is Tree City and everything that goes with it. Yeah, oh, it's very cool, very cool. Norma Ramsey, sure, did you enjoy? Did you enjoy the story? You enjoyed it, I'm assuming. Yes, Beena?
Yes.
And
Yes.
did it live up to its promise? Sure says, I was absorbed into the idea of magic of goodness. For me, feeling goodness comes more than not, but it still wanes. It is a process. Yes, sure. It takes quite a lot of practice and skill to be able to hear past the surface nonsense, to realize that what people are deep inside is sometimes completely disconnected to what's going on the outside. The outside is a distorted, inappropriate application of goodness, right? They're trying in the best way they can through their beliefs and ideas to represent their goodness. But when you are trying to implement a square circle a culture, a square circle psychology, and impossibility, it can't happen, right? So you get this mangledness on the outside, but we need to learn to really, really look past that and look past at the reasons behind that and behind that and behind. Eventually, you get to the core, and eventually, you learn to just throw away all that and say, "Hey, I'm looking at your purity of intent." That's it. Ah, thank you, Ramsey. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Just want to
Yeah.
add something here because
Oh, one second, one second. Hold your thought.
yes.
Ramsey says it was great. Thank you very much. The feedback, it's not for my ego. It is to substantiate my understanding that when I think something objectively is valuable, if I get outside validation, I am now confirming that I am making an accurate assumption. And nothing to do with my ego. It's just about accuracy, right? And that's very helpful. And then Sher also says, yes, quite creative, and somehow feels representative of my spiritual path. Yes, sure, yes, 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 yes. That's why I love this story so much, because that's precisely what is the deeper intent, or one of the deeper intents, right? This representation of the deeper spiritual path. Yes, that there's a moreness, and all of the factors involved. Absolutely. I'll go into that during the week, into how this is a representative of spiritual path. Please share, Bina. Please share.
I was just thinking about that, how these people, like nobles and of course aspirants and all other there at Nobelia, they are so comfortable with their goodness. Mostly in uh, in our surroundings, people are not comfortable with their own goodness,
Exactly.
and
Exactly.
and
Exactly.
they disrupt the whole thing by saying and believing that it is it is not natural, it is impossible,
Yeah.
like too good to be true, that kind of idea.
Exactly.
Because we get uncomfortable with our goodness, with our own goodness, because we have this corrupted self-conception, and that self-conception, which is already
It's again, I lost you at almost.
hear me now.
Yes, yes. It just at almost that you cut off. So just repeat the sentence, please.
Yes, I was just saying that, okay, we get this idea of corrupted self-conception, we get
Yeah,
from of
yeah.
course other sources, and
Other sources and oh, Bina, are you there? I lost you again. Oh dear. I lost your sound, Bina. You're not muted, but I lost you again.
okay.
Oh, what happened? Say the last part again, please. What happened, Bina? Oh yeah, Bina's having trouble with the connection. But yes, this point that Bina brings up about being comfortable sharing our goodness, comfortable just putting it out, just comfortable being good. This is an incredibly, like, I don't know, just something that's just wrong in our society. And it's so amazing. It's so amazing how we don't have that comfort. And sometimes we are even uncomfortable when others display their goodness. How is this right? It's terrible. But there's a reason for it. It is the superiority paradigm culture. Yeah, sure says so true, Bina. Being comfortable with our own goodness means we are fully accepting all of the self that almost feels or can feel overwhelming, but not in a bad way. Overwhelming in a way of deep acknowledgement of our authentic self. Let me add, to me. Yes, thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Yes, I love that, to me. This is essential to our culture. That we're always just saying to me. And honestly, not as a device to be able to say horrible things, which sometimes people do. Well, in my opinion, and then they sprout all sorts of untrue rubbish, right? And they're getting away with it, well, because freedom of speech, I can express my opinion. No, especially if you're doing this as a public broadcast with a large audience, you are being manipulative, right? You are presenting your opinion as a fact and you're using it as guide. What we don't mean it that way here. We mean it truly in the utmost humility that I'm saying, I feel this is a fact. I truly believe this. However, I cannot state it as a fact because it's a personal perspective. Personal, very personal. I love that show. Very, very profound. It makes such a difference. It makes such a difference to our cognition, our perception, our understandings, our interactions, right? And as Bina said, this this openness, this just as a default ability to express and connect to their goodness, their moreness. This is what makes Nobelia society, the new nobility, so profound as a society. It changes everything. It changes everything, opens all the doors. It's just a fantastically marvelous thing. But we need to get comfortable with it, and we need to have the support of it in the superiority paradigm society, because those that are in charge and are creating the culture, they don't have this, and they don't want it to be there because it will show them up, and they can only stay where they are because they're corrupt and they're not nice in some way, and they're lying and abusive and manipulative and all this, right? So, oh, I love that. Sure says, the more I reflect on the story, the more comes. Yes, there's a lot to it. There's a lot to it, as always. And that's what I liked in the story, this particular chapter, that it is a very exciting story. The sound of the great chimes, and Illumina making it happen and all this, right? I mean, it's fun, but there's a very subtle moreness to it all. Yes, it ends with about the innocence, which is a little bit more obvious, right? But still, the deeper subtlety of it is all there, and I love that. I love that it's coming in the subtle way. Yes, very, very powerful, very, very powerful stuff. Very wonderful and fun and fun. I thought it was a very fun story. And that's important. Got to have some fun in it. Sure. By the way, when I said to you the other day, or was it to Jessica? Oh, sorry. I think I said to Jessica. Just as a summation, she read me something that she'd written, and as my takeaway on it, I said, "Society is wrong." Yeah. And I said, add there's a quote if you like to your article, as a well, like in the chapters here, you have those starting quotes, right? Or at the end, I said. But this is a very profound point that's been that I've elaborated on in many ways. But and so that comment that I made to her, I'm actually going to write a book with that title, Book 3 of the Realism series. Society is wrong. And the point of the book is not to point out all the flaws of societies, but it is about providing scope and opportunity for those that aren't into the superiority paradigm, and there's very few that really are. In other words, to provide scope and opportunity and means and techniques and abilities for us to be able to be fully individual, and to express that individuality, and let our goodness come out and our moreness come out, and not have to inhibit and limit it because we're going against society. If society is wrong, then you should kind of be against it, but you don't have to go and be a rebel and destructive and try and destroy and break. No, you are going to simply be your own real true self. And if this exposes the nonsense of society, so be it. That's just too bad, right? And that's okay. And then this is very powerful because it gives the lust of the world. And I'm not just talking about the innocents. There are many people who are simply different and individual, but can't fit into society because of their goodness. You cannot fit into a corrupt society when your innerness, your true self is moreness and goodness. You can't. It doesn't work. But now that not fitting in causes these individuals, and a huge part of society, it causes them great pain and great stress, especially their goodness tries to get them to conform because you're supposed to and should conform, but they cannot. Their honesty will not allow them. So they have this conflict and they live very unhappy, miserable lives. Right? So we made society wrong. Precisely. Precisely. And in the book, it lays out exactly how this comes along, through feudal culture, and uh, the problems with slavery, and how that got distorted into making voluntary slaves, which is a culture that leads to you being in a way that is conducive to being essentially a voluntary slave, right? And when you understand this, I mean, I'm not going into the detail now, but when you understand how we made society wrong, right? Or at least some portion of us, not you and me necessarily, we maintain it by going along with it. But when we realize all this and we say, there is something I can do about it, I can be me. I don't have to fight against society. We have protests and do all sorts of stuff. No, I can simply show. By contrast, by me maintaining my individuality and goodness, by contrast, I will show it, right? And now you start a different paradigm. And when you show the validity of this alternative paradigm, one which you can do without conflict, you want to be part of that? That's fine by me. I got no issue with it. I'm just being me, right? So through independence of being, we can change culture. Yeah, yeah, it's a huge point. That's why I want to write a book on it. Sure, as book 3 of the realism series, right? And to show all of the tools, right? So the first part of the book lays out how it is that society is wrong, why it came to be wrong, how we made it wrong, how we maintain its wrongness, right? And then the major part of the book is to show tools of being that allow you to be yourself, to be your individuality. Like, for instance, understanding that sometimes we have to say, nope, sorry, the whole world, you are wrong in this, and you have to stick to your own truth, right? This is a very powerful point when that is so. Of course, you can only get to that point once impeccability has been applied. So, all of those types of tools, tools of thinking it through to the end, perspective shifting, they are all tools for maintaining your individuality, self-trust, self-honesty, all of that. Providing supportive culture, finding people that share this, changing the paradigm, non-competition, and collaboration, and all of this stuff, right? All of that comes into it as to show how you can get to being individual and changing the society. But the individual doesn't mean being apart from any society. You can have your own community, and to make the effort to set up communities. We are very clear that here the paradigm is non-competitive, non-hierarchical. It's about sharing and enjoying each other, celebrating difference, all of that. So very, very powerful. Yes, we as the majority, but sometimes it involves us as we are humans that are partly driven by impulses. And we are, yes, exactly, Ramsey. So the book is about showing this and really going into depth into the psychology and the behaviors and the patterns and the habits so that we can become aware of what's involved and not only through just awareness alone change things but also through these other tools that I wish to share, which are very evident in the book, in the culture of Nobelia, right? This tool of, for instance, just knowing that sharing your goodness isn't going to get you into trouble. And when you do this and you change the paradigm, man, you end up in fantastic communities like our little mini community here. Yeah, you can share. There's no trying to share to, hey, look at me, look how clever I am. This is not ever the issue. No, we are sharing because it adds to the point. It extends the understanding. It adds and enhances the awareness, right? It's supportive. It's collaborative. We're feeding off each other. 1 + 1 = more. It's absolutely fantastic. So yes, it changes things dramatically, right? So that's the whole point of this book. Yeah. Exactly. It starts with awareness, but you have to go further to find your path. Exactly. If it doesn't end in practice, application application you can do it once. Practice is to take your application and make it innate, to incorporate it into you, to make it part of you, right? To make it your beingness. So if awareness is the start, but it has to end in capital P, practice, because the end of that is now you are changing your way of being to make it innate, natural, automatic, but not habitual, right? Innate, automatic, but not habitual. It ends with deliberate living, in other words, right? But deliberate living that can come instantaneously. You don't have to create it in the moment, think it through again and everything, right? It's there. You've already done it. It's practiced. It's a skill, right? Like all skills. In the beginning, you think about it, you figure it out, but the more you do it, the more innate, the more automatic it becomes, right? Without becoming habitual. Like when you are sewing, sure, right? I mean, I've watched you showing, you've showed us live, and you see how you do that stuff. There's an innateness and an automaticness and a skill to it, right? You're not like slow down. We have to consciously think. But when you started, it was different. You couldn't do it with that same speed and ease, right? Because there's trickiness involved. And you can't do it mindlessly or habitually either because you have to concentrate and pay attention. Otherwise, your stuff is going on. There's direction needed, right, from you. There's actual input needed from you in the moment. You have to guide the sewing machine and the material and everything, right? So, but you can do so with a fluidity and an ease, and I dare say a grace, right? Because I love watching people who are skilled at what they do, deeply skilled. There's a grace to it, right? Because they are combining the creative part and the deliberate part and the innate automaticness. It all works together. It's just wonderful. Yes, yes, and exactly. Thank you, sure. It is a description of our journey, the end point we want to reach, to have this magic fluidity of a being, fluidity of being. In other words, we want to be able to be deliberately, consciously appropriate, but have that ability to be appropriate, that skill to be appropriate, have it come out innately, automatically, in a skilled way, right? Or in the same way as anybody who is skilled, their talents, their skills come out, right? They don't have to really kind of think about it. It happens, but they can think about the application of those skills. Very, very cool. I mean, that's a fantastic way of being to be. It's really, really deep. Yes. It's very profound, very profound. So anyway, it all works together. But I wanted to make this, book 3 of the realism series. All of what's going to be in there is in some way or another in the Biella series and in, psychology of superiority paradigm in the other book. But I wanted to present it from this particular angle, which is a different angle a little bit. How to be, to not be uh, pushed down by society when you aren't a BMN, right? That's really it is. What do you do if you're not a BMN? You're kind of a bit out of luck. You're in a system. You're trying to be part of the system because your goodness says do this, but you can't. So you just end up losing out, and you end up with the negative effects of this. And if you believe those negative effects, like the incels, like the school shooters, right? They feel like losers, and they can't live with that, right? And the way they think they're going to restore it is by doing the very thing that they hate, which is being dominant and suppressing. And look, I showed you, hey, but it's you lose out in the end. Yes, I mean, what a horrible, horrible system. But all of it comes from them trying to implement a system that they can't really. So they find this solution to it. It's horrible, absolutely horrible. But if they had some other alternative, there doesn't exist one, right? Because they're not aware of alternative paradigms. But if they could be aware of other alternatives, just the alternative of being comfortable with individuality, then that's it, right? Because such a pressure on conformity that you have to be a winner and all this stuff. It's conformity, it's pressure. Say, well, you know what? That's your system. I'm going to be me. I'm not into this competition thing. I'm quite happy not being a winner because I don't want to make people lose. Thank you very much. You know, well, it's kind of like I don't care for making other people unhappy and lose and miserable. I'm happy being me. If you think I'm a jerk and foolish and stupid, that's on you. It's not on me, right? So when we develop this self security and we are not insecure anymore, and we have something to support that, it changes everything. Changes everything. Yeah. All right, sure. We're going to go as well. Yeah. It's just wonderful, and I love that you were here for the story. I absolutely love for this one. It's a very particular story. I mean, the next chapter is kind of the opposite again. It's a long, detailed discussion. It's a capital H hearing discussion, right? Where somebody's got a problem, a very real problem, and they just hear them out, and they repeat it, and they go over, and it's a very profound way of illustrating the patience and the care and the goodness of the new nobility. Yeah. Anyway, that's wonderful. That's wonderful. Beena, any closing comments? Norma, where are you? I haven't heard from you. Did you fall off? Did Norma drop off? I haven't seen any comments from Norma for a while. I'm keen to hear from you, Norma. I'm keen to hear from you. Keen to hear from you. Um, Beena, any closing comments before we go?
No, we are waiting for Norma's comment, so just wait for a bit and then see
Yes.
because
Yes. Yeah.
messages are not quick. Comments take time.
Yeah.
She
Yeah.
might respond to that.
Yeah, she might be typing. Yeah, yeah. I hope so. I mean, I didn't see any other comments from quite a while now, so I'm wondering if she didn't perhaps drop. I suspect that's the case. Because usually she will
Mhm.
respond, and join in there to the chat. And we love hearing from you, Norma. We love hearing from you. It's most important to us. Because the king is that many don't understand. It's not always about what we say. Sometimes with some people, and Norma's a very good example of this. Whatever Norma says, I hear her heart. I hear her roots. I hear that goodness. I hear that caring, that kindness, that generosity of spirit. Yes, I hear that. No matter what Norma says, I hear it in whatever she says. I always enjoy her comments. It's very cool. Very cool. Very profound. Yeah, I think Norma has dropped off, Beena. So, any closing comments for you on the story, on the chapter, on the reading of it? I hope my
So that was
emotionality didn't affect the story too much. Yeah.
no. I trained myself to not get affected by that because
Oh, good.
it's a big deal for me to
Yeah.
see anyone getting so
Yeah.
emotional and
Yeah.
emoting.
Yeah. But
I'm
it's
training.
positive emotionality. It's the emotionality of love
I
and
know, I
joy.
know, I
Yeah.
know, I know, but it's still, it was like it's a big deal.
Okay.
Uh,
Good.
myself to not
Good.
get
Good. Good.
affected by that. It's a big deal.
Good, Beena.
And like I'm still,
Excuse me.
for me, it is like whenever someone is doing something which they have like really this earnestness. I'm just watching some YouTube videos or random reels, and people are singing passionately without any music, nothing, just live. They are singing, or they're playing some instrument, or they are drawing something. I
Yeah.
really goosebumps. Like, okay, wow, because it's not about that
Yeah.
particular piece of music, but it's a passion behind that, that
Yeah.
energy,
Yeah.
that earnestness, this purity. So for me, it's a
Yeah.
big deal if someone has this so much connectivity, pure
Yeah.
connectivity with whatever they are doing. It is
Yeah.
so heart overwhelming. Like, okay, really, it's like
Yeah.
really a heartwarming thing. Not
Yeah.
overwhelming, but kind of heartwarming experience for me. This is purity. Again, I would say that other than so many other things, of course, into this story, I just love that how comfortable these people are with their own goodness.
Yes.
This is so
Yes.
huge to me. This is
Yes.
so huge to me
That is a
that they are
huge
not,
takeaway.
because
Huge.
we get so easily overwhelmed by our own goodness, and then we start corrupting it out of goodness, that okay, oh, I can't be that good, oh, I must not say this about me,
Yeah.
I must not behave like that, because it might be an ego thing. Oh, I'm feeling something about, but they are so comfortable with their own goodness. They don't need any justification. They don't need any
Exactly.
dilution for that.
Exactly.
They don't try to dilute.
Exactly.
This,
Exactly.
this is
Exactly.
what it is. Yeah. And that is
We
so magical
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
me,
Yeah. Our
from all
culture.
the
Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
that they are so comfortable with their own goodness.
Yes.
No nonsense at all. And this
Exactly.
is something where I have experienced that in my life, in my surrounding, that people, when they are into some positive environment, by default they assume it is temporary.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I must behave like this, and I'm
Yeah.
this because I just belong to this. No, 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 no. I cannot
Right.
belong to
Right. Right.
this goodness,
Right.
this
And
positivity.
and
That
also, oh,
gets me.
yeah.
That's why
And
it never gets me.
sorry, our timing is a bit off. Say again.
No, I was just saying that, okay, that's why it never gets innate to them,
Yes.
because they
Yes.
assume subconsciously, they are so, like, they confirm that this is temporary thing. I can be good, I can be positive, I can be earnest
Yes.
just right now in
Yes.
this moment,
Yes.
because this is not who I
Yes.
am.
Yes. And also, Bina, the very goodness of good people mitigates or works against them when it comes to expressing their goodness, right? Because if you become aware that when you are dealing with people who are deeply into the superiority paradigm, right, and they have comparative mindset and the mentality of opposites, yes, and those people aren't very nice people. And they are aware that they aren't being very nice. They're being mean and derogatory and demeaning and, hierarchical and trying for dominance, which means putting people down and, saying nasty things to put them down and, sabotaging them and all this kind of rubbish, right? So they aren't nice people and they know it. I mean, they at root, they are good people, because they are trying to do what they're supposed to do, except that what they're supposed, at least what they believe is what they're supposed to do, is absolute nonsense, right? But now the problem is for good people. If I show my goodness, I know I'm going to hurt and upset those people because I'm going to expose their nonsense. So good people are reluctant to show their goodness. Not only is it going to hurt those people in this nonsense, right? And of course, there's various degrees of it, right? Some people are just, peripherally caught up in this, as in, looking to boost their egos and self-importance. They're not actively going and being nasty, right? But nonetheless, right, you still show them up. And furthermore, though, for some of the people that are very deeply into that, they will then actively target you and make active efforts to put you down and be nasty and sabotage you and say horrible things and do horrible things to you because they don't want to be shown up, right? So there's a very real danger or real detriment to showing your goodness, as well as, in a more mild way, just with your nice friends who are caught up in this misbelief that uh, you don't want to make them unhappy. You don't want to make them feel uncomfortable, right? That's a very tricky problem. Yes, very
Yes.
tricky, very very tricky. So the very goodness of good people causes them not to show their goodness. And of course, if you're in a culture that has this, and like the BMN culture that we live in, if you're looking to manipulate and distort, like I said, to have willing slaves, self-created slavery. This is a culture that works for you, not against you, because it legitimizes your culture of being abusive and manipulative, right? By getting everybody else
Yeah.
to follow along in the same culture. Right? So it's a grand manipulation on a civilization worldwide scale. It's quite profound, right? It's a very big deal, huge, huge, huge deal. And when we understand this, and then we know, we can then learn to be able to express our goodness in such a way that it doesn't press on others as much as it might. Yes, because we are going to do it via, for instance, expressing ourselves to say, eccentricity. This culture is peculiarly able to tolerate eccentricity, right? So you can be eccentric, and that's okay, right? Because as long as you're eccentric, even if you are doing things which are exposing the culture, doesn't matter because it's in that bubble of eccentricity. And eccentricity is like tolerated madness. Yeah. So you don't take eccentric people seriously. What they say, who they are, how they are, it doesn't matter. Yeah, because they're eccentric. So you can get to be who you are without criticizing, by just being, when you're serious and you at least not eccentric or not regarded as eccentric, then what you are is taken as this criticism. But when you're eccentric, you can do the same things and nobody bats an eyelid, right? It's not an issue. And that's something, that's the start, of course. And then as things go on and go deeper and get more involved, when you create your own subcultures, then things will change. But I think, Beena, I really think, just to end this up here and wrap it up, so I don't want to get too far away from the story. I really, really feel that in the world we have, not just today, but ever since I've been perceiving this world, and if I look back in through history via via literature and stuff, that the average person, which is a good person and has to be,
Yes.
otherwise we'd have civilization implode. They are desperately looking for an alternative to this nonsense culture that we have. And it's just not been available. But I think if it does become available and you start having little mini communities that are, like us, and you can join us, it changes everything, right? But there needs to be the awareness that of what it actually is, because we share our culture and people come and join, but they don't perceive it as different because they don't have the language, the perception, the cognition to realize it's different. So they still look at it through the filter, and they're still coming via superiority paradigm culture. So they don't always perceive it. But once it's clearly made clear that, hey, here's an alternative, I think people will leap at the opportunity to participate in that. Absolutely leap at it. Now, this I am fairly sure of, because they want that. They struggle, they suffer in the way. They can't be good, right? They can't be themselves. And that's never good. It's never ideal. Yes? Make sense, Beena?
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah. Very, very, very big deal. Very, very, very big deal. Yeah. Super
Okay, so we
cool,
are going to wrap
Beena.
it now.
Super cool. Yes, I'm going to end it now and say thank you for all being here. Thank you,
Thank
Beena.
you so much,
I hope
everyone.
you,
Thank
I
you,
mean,
Ramsey. It was nice
yeah.
to see you after very long. And
Yes.
Sandy, you were there. Okay, that was something like, okay, yes, it was good. Sure, after very long again.
Yeah.
Norma, good
Yeah.
that you were there. And whoever
Yes.
is going to watch, and even if you are not watching, you
Live.
are in our class, and
Yes.
this is very important for us that you guys are there and happy. That's it.
Yes.
We don't
Yes.
do anything. This story is very special. And throughout the week, I'm going to ask Syl many questions. We might get into some paragraphs from that, and then I will ask again, and
Oh
then
yes.
I
Oh yes.
perspective. So
Oh
this
yes.
is how, because it is important to, wherever we can get a
Yeah.
goodness in life
Yes.
and the goodness
Yes.
in life and
Yes.
the more goodness in
Yes.
life,
Yes.
we need to grab it.
Yeah.
We need
Yeah.
to grab it with like teeth and claw, and then just grab it, because
Absolutely.
it's so important.
Absolutely. 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 We're gonna have a great fun going through the story this week. Yeah.
Yes.
Absolutely. Absolutely. All
Okay,
right.
sir.
A
Thank you so
pleasure. A
much.
pleasure. A pleasure, Ramsey. Ramsey says thank you. Thank you. Absolute pleasure, Ramsey. All right. On that wonderful, beautiful note, bye bye, good people. Bye bye, good people. See you next time. Bye bye, bye bye, bye bye. All right. End meeting for all. Yes.